Today's lesson is going to be all about dotted notes, what they are and how they function. When we're talking about dots, we're talking about this thing right here. Not the dots that go under a note, things that look like this. That's not the kind of dot we're talking about. That's a staccato marking, which is an articulation. The dot to the right of a note changes a lot of things. So let me tell you a little story about how I came to understand dots. It happened here on a soft drink aisle back in about 2004. So I was walking down, and usually you see two different sizes of drinks. You see 2 liters and you see 3 liters, and usually they put the 3 liters up on the top shelf, right? So I walked down there one day and I noticed on the Diet Coke label there was a special saying. Let me show you what it said. Yes, I did keep the label because it was memorable. 50% more. That catches your eye as a consumer, doesn't it? 50% more. I think I'm getting 50% more of this product. Now read the small print. Than a 2 liter. Now wait a minute. This is still a 3 liter bottle. So what you see here is a little consumer trick. The Coke manufacturer wants their consumers to think, I'm getting more drink for my money. So they put 50% more in big text on their wrapper. But just to make sure people understand, they're just stating the obvious, they put than a 2 liter. Because you see, a 3 liter bottle is 50% more than a 2 liter. And that's when it hit me. That is exactly what happens when you dot something. A dot adds 50% more. So for instance, normally a half note is the length of 2 beats, as you can see here. So whatever's after this half note starts on beat 3. In this case, it's a couple of quarter notes. So you would count this rhythm 1, 3, 4. When I add a dot to a half note, that increases the length by 50%. So it used to get 2 beats, now it gets 3 beats. Why? Because half of 2 is 1. So there's the extra beat. So a dotted half note is the length of 1, 2, 3 beats. So whatever comes after it is going to start on beat 4. This means that in a 4/4 measure, you can only put a dotted half note on beat 1 or beat 2. If you put it on beat 3, there's not enough room in the rest of the measure for it. So dotted half notes, very common. This rhythm in particular is the most common use of a dotted half note. And it's so critical that you feel these 3 beats so that you know where to play beat 4. Count that with me. Ready, count. 1, 4. Do it again. Ready, count. 1, 4. So important. But remember, you can dot anything. Let's see what happens when we dot a quarter note. So here, a normal quarter note is usually the length of 2 eighth notes, 1 te. So when we add a dot to the quarter note, we're essentially adding the length of 1 eighth note to it. So a dotted quarter note is the length of 1, 2, 3 eighth notes. And in this case, since we're talking about eighth notes, that pulse will be a little different. 1, te, 3, and so on. Count that with me. Ready and count. 1, te, 3. Or we could keep going. 3, te, 1. You can put a dotted quarter note in many places in the measure and not have a problem. But this part, especially on beat 1 or beat 3, are the most common. And as you can see or hear, feeling 1, 3 pulses is the most important part of this. When you get to a dotted quarter note, you can't just think 1, te, 3. You really have to keep that eighth note internal beat going. 1, te, 3. Some places will teach the concept of a dotted note using a tie. So they'll say, look, really all you have to do is tie this quarter note together with the eighth note, and this is the same rhythm as this. 1, 2, 3. Because see, a tie connects these two. It adds them together. You keep blowing. You wouldn't articulate this second note. You just keep blowing. So sometimes you will see essentially a dotted rhythm expressed with a tie. We could go back to the half note and do the same thing. So if we were to add the tie on this half note, 1, 4. These two measures are essentially the same in terms of how they would sound. But to me, it's a lot easier to read with a dot next to it. Here are a couple of other dot-related questions. If you had a dollar bill and you dotted the dollar bill, how much would it be worth? Think of it. A dotted dollar bill. If you said $1.50, that's correct. If you said anything else, you're wrong. So a dotted dollar bill is worth $1.50. And again, do the math. Half of a dollar, 50% of a dollar is 50 cents. You add it to the dollar, $1.50. Okay? Here's another question. What if I had a $10 bill and I dotted a $10 bill? How much is a dotted $10 bill worth? Well, if you said $10.50, you would be wrong. Because remember, the dot changes value depending on its parent item. If it's a half note, quarter note, $10 bill, $1 bill, doesn't matter. I wish you could dot things like dollar bills and $10 bills. It'd make it a lot easier. No, the correct answer, a dotted $10 bill would be worth $15. What about a $50 bill? A dotted $50 bill. Does anybody have a $50 bill we can borrow for this? Probably not. Me neither. Well, let's think. A $50 bill, half of that, 50% of 50 is 25. And you add 50 and 25 and you get $75. So a dotted $50 bill is worth $75. Hopefully that helps you kind of understand what a dot does. And to really blow your mind, it's even possible, I'll show you here, it's even possible to dot a dot. And you can dot another dot. And you could keep going. It gets kind of silly. And guess what that means? Well, for each dot, it's 50% more of the parent previous item. So this dot is 50% of this dot. This dot is 50% of that dot. It gets pretty crazy. You won't see quintuple dotted half notes, but you might see a double dotted quarter note at some point. That's somewhat possible. But for today's purposes, just worry about a single dot.